Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will review everything you need to know about quadratic equations for the upcoming test. So quadratic equations look like this. This x squared term makes them a quadratic. So you should know by now there are three ways to solve a quadratic equation. You can factorize them, use quadratic formula, or completing the square. So depending on the question, one of these may be easier. Now note, unless the question specifically says, you must factorize, you can choose which of these methods you use. So a C-level student will be able to solve a quadratic equation using these methods. So I'm going to solve this quadratic equation firstly by factorizing, then using the quadratic formula. So let's go by factorizing. So because this is non-monic, I need to use the AC method. So AC, A is 3, C is -8, equals -24. The two numbers that multiply to -24 and add to 2 are -4 and 6. So you split up the middle term accordingly. We go 3x squared plus 6x minus 4x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, now what we do is we factorize the first two. Highest common factor is 3x. All right, now we look at the last two. The highest common factor there is -4. So when you're using the AC method for factorizing, note that these brackets must be the same or you've done something wrong. We use highest common factor again. The highest common factor of this and this is the x plus 2 in brackets. Okay, what do we times by x plus 2 to get the first thing? Well, we times by 3x. What do I times by x plus 2 to get the second term? Well, it's being multiplied by -4. So after we factorize, we use the null factor law. The null factor law says if you have something times something equals 0, either the first something equals 0 or the second something equals 0. So if x plus 2 equals 0, then x just equals -2. These are just linear equations, so you can just undo what's been done to x. So here, 3x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to add 4 to both sides, divide by 3, I get 4 over 3. Let's check we get the same answer from the quadratic formula. So here we have the quadratic formula. My advice is that you put it on your cheat sheet, even if you think you know it, because it's easy to forget. So my advice is when you're using the quadratic formula, first calculate this, which is called the discriminant. So the discriminant here is b squared minus 4 times a times c. Put that on your calculator if you like, you get 100. So a positive discriminant means there are two solutions. What are the two solutions? Well, one of them is going to be minus b plus the square root of the discriminant over 2a, and the other one's going to be minus 2 minus square root of discriminant over 2a. So we have that the solutions are, this one becomes 8 over 6, which is 4 over 3, and the next one becomes minus 12 over 6, which is -2. We got the same answers. So either method we want to use is fine. So a C-level student can do this. Well, what can a B-level student do? Let's have a look. So the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So it doesn't matter if you are using quadratic formula, factorization, or completing the square, one side must be equal to 0 before you factorize, before you use the quadratic formula, or whatever. So we need to get this equation to look like that. That takes quite a bit of work. That's the trick to this question and why it's a B-level question. As I said before in a previous video, B-level questions, basically C-level questions, but with a trick to them. So let's make this look like that. Well, to do that, we're going to have to get rid of the fractions. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by x minus 4 to get rid of this fraction. But this is still an equation, so the rule still applies. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I end up with 10 plus 10 lots of x minus 4 over x minus 1 equals 7. Now I have to times the 7 by x minus 4 to keep this balanced. Now from here or here, some of you may be able to see one of the solutions. One of the solutions is x equals 6, but there is another solution that's not obvious. We need both solutions. That's why we need to follow this process. So now I'm going to get rid of this fraction by timesing each side by x minus 1. Once again, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So I get 10 lots of x minus 1 plus 10 lots of x minus 4, and I have my 7x minus 4, but I have to now multiply that by x minus 1. Okay, now we have something that's starting to look a little more like that. The problem is we still don't have one side equal to 0. So to get one side equal to 0, I'm going to have to expand everything and then get everything to one side. So 10x minus 1, 10x minus 4 gives us this. All right, let's expand this. So this will be 7x squared minus 5x plus 4. I'm hoping that you can use FOIL to expand these brackets nice and quickly. All right, so just making things a bit easy to work with. 10x plus 10x, negative 10 minus 40 equals 7x squared minus 35x plus 28. All right, to get one side equal to 0, I'm going to subtract 20x from both sides, and I'm going to add 50 to both sides. So then I end up getting 7x squared minus 55x plus 78. All right, this is still not an easy equation to solve. How are we going to solve it? Well, 7 times 78 is a big number. It's actually 546. We don't want to go through the factors of 546 when we're factorizing, so let's use the quadratic formula. So firstly, I will calculate the discriminant. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4 times a times c. So you can put that on your calculator. Obviously, you get 841. So using the quadratic formula, solutions are x equals negative b, so it becomes a positive, negative 55, minus b plus or minus square root of discriminant over 2 times a. So if you put that on your calculator, you should get the two solutions, 6 and 13 over 7. As I said, this one was a bit obvious. Some people would be able to come up with that just by looking at the equation. That one not obvious. All right, we're done. A lot of work, a trick to it. That's why it was an above standard question. Let's look at another harder question. So in this question, we're told ax squared minus 70x plus 25a equals 0 has one solution. We're going to find the value of a. So this is another above standard question, probably an A-level question, and there is a trick to it. The trick is I haven't just given you an equation to solve. You can't just follow the process. You have to do a bit of lateral thinking. So you have to say to yourself, okay, what does it mean if a quadratic equation has one solution? Well, it means that the discriminant equals 0. So what is the discriminant here? Well, the discriminant is still b squared minus 4 times a times c. Now c, the constant term, is 25a. So if this has one solution, then discriminant equals 0. So let's make this a bit easier to work with. So 4900 minus 4 times a times 25a. So negative 4 times 25 is negative 100, and a times a is a squared. All right. This can be solved. This is easily solved through factorization because we have the difference of two squares. This is how you factorize the difference of two squares. When you have a perfect square minus a perfect square. You square root the first. You square root the second. So square root of 100 is 10. Square root of a squared is a. One gets a plus, one gets a minus. So what are the two solutions? Well, the null factor law says if you have something times something equals 0, either the first something equals 0 or the second something equals 0. So if 70 plus 10a equals 0, you get a equals negative 7. This is just a linear equation, so subtract 70, divide by 10. And similarly here you get a is 7. You can write the solution as a equals positive or negative 7. So if you substitute a for 7 or negative 7 here and here, you will get a quadratic equation that has a 0 discriminant and therefore has only one solution. All right, let's look at a question now that's definitely an A-level question. So you probably guessed even before this video that in order to be an A-level student, you need to be able to solve worded problems. So a C-level student can just get a simple equation with no trick and solve it. For an A-level student, you need to be able to come up with the equation and then solve it. Now, this is an A-level question also because it turns out once we find the equation here, it's still not easy to solve. So this is what you need to do to be able to do an A-level question. So let's look at it. Our class raised $43.20 by collecting equal amounts from people. If 6 more contributed, each person would have contributed $36 less. How many people have contributed? So even though this is hard, even for a worded problem, we are not going to deviate from the process. The process of solving worded problems with quadratic equations, we always start by letting x equal what we're trying to find. So here we're trying to find the number of people that have contributed, so I'm going to let x be the number of people. So our class raised $43.20 by collecting equal amounts from people. So each person contributed $43.20 divided by x. So what we're told is that if we had 6 more contribute, so that would mean x plus 6 people contributed, this number would be $36 less than that number. So you can write that mathematically that this is 36 less than that by saying first quantity minus second quantity gives us 36. This is a quadratic equation. It's still not easy to solve, but we've got an equation. We'll at least get some credit even if we can't go any further. So to solve this equation, I need to get rid of the fractions first. So I'm going to multiply each side by x lots of x plus 6. So on the left-hand side, I get this, and on the right-hand side, I need to multiply by x and then by x plus 6. Okay, now, I said before, it doesn't matter whether we're using quadratic formula, factorizing, or completing the square, we need to make one side equal to 0. So the way we're going to do that here is by expanding the brackets. So expanding the brackets on both left and right-hand side of the equal sign. So 36x times x is 36x squared, and then 36x times 6. Okay, the 4320x and negative 4320x cancel out. I can get this to the right-hand side by subtracting. That's what I want. I need one side equal to 0. So I'll subtract 25,920 from both sides. So I get 0 equals 36x squared plus 216x minus 25,920. Okay, so we've got one side equal to 0. Now we need to choose which method we're going to use. So using factorization here, that would be pretty tough. To find factors of this number will be here all day. We also don't want to use completing the square. We pretty much never want to use that to solve equations because it takes too long. Let's just use the quadratic formula. So the discriminant b squared minus 4ac is just 37,79136. That's just b squared minus 4ac. So x is going to be minus b plus or minus the square root of this number here, all divided by 2 times 36. So putting that in our calculator, we get two answers. We get 24 or negative 30. Now, because x was number of people, and you definitely can't have a negative number of people, we conclude that 24 contributed. All right, there we're done. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Best of luck with the test, but you'll ace it. You're a superstar. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.